An old woman walked home with her basket, as she had done countless times. But this evening, two tiny puppies appeared. Dusty fur, wide, pleading eyes. They weren't begging for food. They were begging for something far more urgent. An old woman, her steps slow but steady, walked home with a wicker basket on her arm. The path was familiar, the kind she had taken countless times before. But that evening, something unusual happened. Out of the silence came a pair of tiny figures. Two small puppies, their fur dusty and their eyes wide, stumbled into her path. At first, she thought they were strays searching for food. But instead of sniffing at her basket, they rose onto their hind legs, pressing their little paws together as if they were begging. Their whimpers were sharp, desperate, not the cries of hunger, but of urgency. The old woman froze, heart tugged by their pleading eyes. Something in their behavior told her this was no ordinary encounter. These puppies weren't asking for bread. They were asking for help. The old woman bent slightly, her knees creaking, and extended a hand toward the tiny creatures. But instead of coming closer for comfort, the puppies barked sharply, then tugged gently at the hem of her dress. Their small teeth nipped the fabric, not in mischief, but insistence. They pulled, then released, running a few paces ahead before turning back with pleading eyes. She frowned in confusion. "What is it, little ones?" she whispered. They barked again, high-pitched and frantic, then darted back to her feet. One pawed at her shoe, the other whined loudly, their bodies trembling with urgency. Step by step, they repeated the same action: pull, run forward, stop, look back. It was as if they were begging her to follow. The old woman hesitated, her basket heavy in her hand, but the desperation in their eyes was undeniable. Finally, she sighed, setting her basket down. "All right, show me." The moment she took a step forward, the puppies sprang into action, bounding down the dusty road with renewed energy. They looked back constantly, making sure she was behind them. Her heart raced with curiosity and dread. Wherever they were leading her, she knew it was something important. The old woman followed slowly at first, her cane tapping against the dirt road as the puppies dashed ahead. They would run a few yards, then stop, barking urgently until she caught up. Each time she neared, they darted forward again, their tiny paws kicking up dust. It was clear, they were leading her somewhere. The road soon gave way to a narrow trail that cut into the woods. Branches arched overhead, filtering the last rays of daylight into thin golden beams. The air grew cooler, heavier, and the woman's steps faltered. She wasn't used to wandering this far from home. Still, the sight of the puppies, ears perked, tails wagging despite their worry, kept her moving. Her heart began to pound. What could be so urgent that even such young creatures would risk leading a stranger? Every bark echoed with urgency, pulling her deeper into the trees. She gripped her cane tighter, determination mixing with unease at one point. One puppy stopped and gave a sharp howl, as if to remind her not to turn back. She nodded weakly, whispering, "I'm coming." The trail grew darker, the forest thicker. Whatever waited at the end, she knew, it would change everything. The trail opened into a small clearing, where the smell of damp wood and decay hung heavy in the air. The puppies raced ahead, their sharp barks echoing through the stillness. They stopped in front of a collapsed shed, its roof caved in, boards splintered and rotting from years of neglect. The old woman's breath caught as she drew closer. At first, she saw nothing but broken wood and tangled weeds. Then, from beneath a pile of heavy planks, came a faint, pitiful whine. The puppies darted to the sound, pawing frantically at the debris, her eyes widened in horror. Beneath the boards lay their mother, a frail, trembling dog pinned down, too weak to move. Her fur was matted with dirt, ribs visible beneath her thin frame. Yet when she lifted her eyes, they glistened with recognition and desperate hope. The puppies cried louder, licking at her muzzle through the gaps in the wood. The old woman dropped to her knees, tears stinging her eyes. She had followed them here for a reason. They hadn't been begging for themselves. They had been pleading for their mother's life in that moment. She understood. She had no choice but to save her. The old woman pressed her trembling hands against the heavy boards. She pushed with all her strength, but the wood barely shifted. Her breath grew ragged, her frail arms straining against the weight. The mother dog whimpered softly, her eyes never leaving the woman's face. as if begging her not to give up. "Hold on, girl," the woman whispered, her voice breaking. The puppies barked desperately, pawing and scratching at the planks as though trying to help. But it wasn't enough. Alone, she couldn't free their mother. Her voice rose, cracking with urgency. "Help! Somebody please!" The sound carried across the clearing. A neighbor, hearing her cries, came running with 2 more villagers close behind. Together, they bent to the task, heaving the rotting planks aside one by one. At last, with a final push, the last board rolled away. The mother dog whimpered, pulling herself free, her weak body collapsing into the dirt. Instantly, the puppies rushed to her, licking her face, tails wagging furiously. The old woman's eyes filled with tears as she stroked the mother's head. The family was together again, but their fight for survival was only beginning. The old woman wrapped the weak mother dog in her shawl, her hands gentle but urgent. "We must take her home," she said, her voice trembling. The villagers nodded, their faces solemn. Carefully, they carried the fragile animal back down the dirt path, the 2 puppies trotting faithfully at their heels. When they reached the woman's cottage, neighbors quickly gathered. Word of the rescue spread, and soon baskets of blankets, bowls of milk, and jars of medicine appeared at her doorstep. Children peeked inside, eyes wide with sympathy, while their parents offered warm food and gentle hands to help. The mother dog was placed on a bed of soft rags near the fireplace. Her chest rose and fell weakly, but she was alive. The puppies curled against her, whimpering softly as they nestled close. Finally able to rest, the old woman looked around her small home, now filled with warmth and kindness. The entire community had come together for a dog and her babies. What began as a desperate plea in the road was becoming something far greater, a story of compassion, hope, and the unshakable bond between a mother and her children. Days turned into weeks, and slowly the mother dog regained her strength. With every meal, her ribs became less visible, her fur grew softer, and her eyes, once clouded with pain, began to shine again. The old woman cared for her tirelessly, feeding her warm broth, brushing her coat, and whispering gentle words. The puppies, once frantic and thin, now played freely in the yard. They tumbled over each other in the grass, their high-pitched barks ringing like laughter. Whenever they grew tired, they nestled against their mother, who watched them with pride, her tail wagging faintly. The old woman, once lonely in her cottage, now found herself surrounded by life. She would often sit in her chair by the fire, smiling as the little family dozed at her feet. In rescuing them, she had gained something too, an unexpected family of her own. Months later, the once weak mother dog now stood tall and strong, her coat gleaming under the sun. The puppies, full of energy, raced through the garden, their playful barks echoing across the village. Wherever they went, people smiled, remembering the incredible way they had begged for help to save their mother. The old woman often sat by her gate, watching them with pride. Neighbors passing by would stop to admire the family, their hearts warmed by the reminder of loyalty and courage. What began as 2 tiny pups tugging at a stranger's dress had become a story that touched the entire community. The puppies had not only saved their mother's life, but they had also brought joy, hope, and companionship to an old woman who once walked alone. And to you watching, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stories like this remind us that love can save lives.